Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords. And today I'm doing a video. I wasn't really going to do a video on this topic, but then a wokist invoked my name, so now it must happen. So here's the newest nonsense, but it's actually an old nonsense. It's something that I've already talked about a lot, which is this idiotic notion that the wokists in D&D have of these ideas of like player consent rules and things like that, and it's been reignited now because there's apparently an upcoming Wizards product, which is a continuation of the Lost Minds of Phandelver, I think it was called. And in this new book that is coming out, which is, I guess, a higher level, it's like go even deeper down the Lost Minds or whatever, which I know very little about apart from this one detail. There's a plot of the adventure is that you have to stop some kind of sinister cult from using some kind of magical power that would end up causing a whole bunch of people in an enormous area, like we're talking the whole region. It would transform those people. I don't know if it's just humans or knowing D&D, no, of course, because it's all just one big melting pot anyways, right? So it's like, it would be humans, tieflings, Aasimars, all equally affected, kobolds, orcs, whatever. And it would turn them all into mind flayers, right? So this is the plot, right? There's sinister cult. I guess they're a mind flayer cult or a mind flayer worshipping cult. And their goal is to use this eldritch magic that will end up transforming thousands of people into mind flayers right on the surface of the world. Which I think is not a bad plot point, actually. It's a race against the clock to stop these people, right? But apparently in the book, it has one of these sidebars that says, well, if the players fail at this, then in theory, they should turn into mind flayers. However, you as the DM must ask them as the player to consent to such a transformation for their character, because you shouldn't make any changes to someone's character without their consent, right? And this is where the stupidity comes in. This is just ridiculous garbage advice from garbage people. Okay, let's start with that. There is consent in gaming, of course, right? You consent to game when you sit down at the DM's table. At that point, you have consented to the game. And of course, that doesn't mean the DM can physically punch you, the player, or hit on you as the player. But it means that, whatever is going on with the DM and the player, with the DM, or rather with the DM's world and the player character, whatever's going on there, you've agreed to participate in because you're sitting at the goddamn table, right? And if something happens that you do not approve of, you can immediately withdraw your consent as a player by standing up and leaving that table. I think Meatball agrees there. She was just scratching her head in agreement or something. I missed it, unfortunately. All right. I'll try to catch her doing something cute in a moment. Like right now. Haha, I got you by surprise, Meatball. There we go. All right. So, this is consent in gaming, right? That you consent to be part of the group and participate and play by the rules and play your character and accept what happens to your character in the game the moment you sit down at the table. You want to withdraw your consent, you get up from the table and leave, and then you're not in the game anymore. That's how it works. That's the process, right? The whole problem and this whole notion that these people have is that they should have a right to not have to leave the table, right? That they should get to decide what happens and cannot happen in the game, not the DM, not the rest of the party. And so if they feel like their character, they don't want it to turn into a mind flayer, then they should just not, that shouldn't be allowed to happen. And they get to stay on the table, and the DM and everybody else has to pussyfoot around them, around their fragile little psyches, right? And of course, part of the problem of this too is that you have these woke people who, in the effort to basically use RPGs to advance the woke causes, keep trying to push this narrative of suggesting that in an RPG, you are playing an extension of yourself, a dream version of yourself. That for decades was known as a bad role player, is the guy who's basically either just playing himself or playing a Mary Sue version of himself. But of course, woke people do this all the time. That's why we see it everywhere in movies and comic books, right? Where you have, remade characters that look like the person doing the writing, and that it's obviously just a projection of the person doing the writing. And those characters are awesome and super incredible, and nothing bad can ever happen to them because they are the diversity character, right? So this mentality is what they're trying to push on D&D. D&D, the whole point, the entire point of the immersion experience is that you play someone who is not you. You play someone different than you, right? You're playing a different character. You're not playing yourself. You're not just yourself in the game world. You are playing a projection of something else that is not you. But what they want to claim is that the D&D experience is actually, it's like you're playing yourself, and because, you're polyamorous and asexual, then I don't know how that would work, but whatever. Then that means that you should, you can be you as a tiefling because, tieflings are queer. And so this is a way of expressing what you really are on the inside all along, right? All along you were a tiefling warlock. Who would have known it, Well, a lot of people probably, if they just look at your Twitter feed, but the point is, these people want to push that idea, right? That your character is just an extension of you. It's actually not just an extension of you. It's the you wish and long for everybody to see that is inside of you, right? It's your transsexual you, or whatever, your queer self or what have you. And so like that's what they push. And then of course what that means then is that any act that harms your character would be a direct attack on you, right? Like think about it that way, right? Like if you're furry, whatever, cat being thief / warlock who has come out in public as as a non-binary gender fluid hero, right? And if they're, then that's fine for them to go in the Waterdeep Pride Parade, which exists now apparently in the game, right? Like that's happening, right? So you could go do that. But if you get like stabbed, that's like someone is committing violence against, what did I say? Trans, non-binary, polyamorous whatevers, right? Like then you're actually, that would be an act of violence by the DM, who must be a white supremacist at that point. Because who else would stab an imaginary person with another imaginary person when that person is meant to be representative of a real person's mental illness, I guess. I don't know. Like the mental illness of thinking that your character is you. I don't mean any other thing that some people might define as mental illness, right? So like this is, this is obviously the act of a full-blown, 1939 German, right? Because it's just hate, right? It's pure hate that anything bad happens to your character. So only good things could happen to your character. And the only time a bad thing could happen is if you permit it, and you can put conditions on what you permit or not, right? So mainly if you want, let's say something that's kind of bad to happen, but then you immediately triumph over it and become more powerful than ever, right? Because that's meant to be the story, is that as long as you're embracing your identity, that's the whole thing, the whole reason why you live on Earth. And that embrace of your identity means that you're a success in the world, even though in the real world, it never means that, right? Like the embracing of your identity is irrelevant to your success in the world, unless you're a grifter. And then yes, I guess it is to some degree relevant of some of your material or political clout, maybe, but it's not relevant to your success as a human being, because that's not what a human being is not about. Discovering and embracing their identity. It's actually about transcending that. It's about standing for something bigger than yourself, right? And instead we live in the time of the cult of the self. So there's a bunch of people that are outraged that a bunch of other people are saying, no, that whole idea is bullshit, right? Why does the DM have to get any kind of consent to transform you into anything, right? Or to do anything else to your character for that matter, right? And again, this comes back to the fundamental. The fundamental is the DM is in charge of the table. If you don't like that DM, you get up from the table and leave. You have the right to do that. No one can stop you from do that. Anyone who does try to physically keep you at the table, I would agree, would deserve to be forever, thrown out of the hobby, probably imprisoned, because, that's probably a literal crime, right? So that would be all right to say that person is a bad person. If the physical person, the actual person in real life, grabbed you, tied you to the table, said, no, you have to keep playing and we get to do all these horrible things to you, right? But if not, no, your right is to leave. And the cost of that right is that then you're not playing anymore, right? That's your choice. You are allowed to do that. You can go and there's the door. Don't, go find another group, right? And if the group is actually bad, and it's not just that you're, a whiny little bitch, then you're justified in leaving, right? However, if not, you got to sit there and you got to take it. You got to accept, it's up to you to decide whether the game is good enough for you to be in it or not. It is not your right to put your demands of whatever your nonsense is on everybody else at that table. And it'll never be that. Not as long as, you can't have like police breaking down the doors because you've reported that somebody didn't ask your consent in a D&D game. Maybe that time will come in certain places. Maybe it's already happened in California. I'm not sure. But in any case, until that happens, and unless you're in a place where that will happen, it's not your right. You don't get to demand line by line vetoes of what happens to your character. You have the right to either join the party or leave the party. That's it. You play your character, and if anything there doesn't work, and that doesn't even have to be about your own consent. It could be that maybe the DM just sucks, right? Or maybe one of the other players is really annoying, and you can talk about it. You can say, "Hey, I don't want to do this." Maybe the DM will do something. Maybe he won't. And then you decide, do I stay or do I leave? And that's it. You are the one who is responsible, not everybody else sitting around there. Nobody else has to cater to the thing that you care about. Okay, that's basically the truth of the matter. All right, and then this became something I finally decided to do another video about. Thanks, and I want to call her out by name because she called me out by name falsely. Alison Saiby, who is you probably never heard of her, right? But she's apparently some very minor story game designer. I'm gonna say, I don't know. I think mainly she just says woke stuff on Twitter. And apparently she got into this debate, which again, I was avoiding because I've made videos about this before, right? I've made this argument already. And she then some people started to criticize her. And then she took those and screenshotted them and posted them on her Twitter and said, oh my God, the RPG Pundit has sent people from his forum to attack me, right? Like so that was how, and thank you to the Red Room for bringing that to my attention. They pointed it out to me and I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, so I went onto the RPG site, which is my forum, www.rpgsite.com, but it's not a forum. It's not a forum about me. It's literally the third biggest, the third biggest message board on tabletop RPGs around, right? Like it's huge, right? And so there's tons of topics, and I don't look at most of them, right? So whatever anyone is doing on the RPG site is not something I am personally responsible for, unless I went there and did a post and said, go get this person. But I did not. And in fact, I scanned the threads, the active threads, and didn't find her anywhere, right? Now, I might have missed something, but unless if someone does have a correction, please say so. Let me know. But as far as I could see, nothing happened on the RPG site of any relation to Alison Saiby, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, sorry. And it seems to me like this is purely a case of someone name dropping me because I am, such a terrifying figure to them, that it's something that allows them to get clout, right? It's like, if you're one of these people and you say, oh, the police are bugging me, if you're a crook, right? Like, which these people basically are, and say, oh, the police are harassing me, right? Nobody's going to give a crap. But if you say, oh my God, Superman came by and grabbed me and put me in jail, right? Then that kind of probably give you some street cred, right? If it's Superman, right? And so I'm guessing that's what's working out here, right? I'm the biggest bad guy to these people because I'm their biggest obstacle to actually being able to do what they want to do with this hobby. And So, she decided that she wasn't being paid enough attention to, even by her own people on the left. And so she decided to claim falsely that I've led a harassment campaign against her. Right? Well, okay. So you wanted me to name you, Allison, or you said I did. So now I have, right? Because I think that's only fair. Right? So now I'm not saying anybody should go and harass her, but at least now it's all, now she has gotten a justification of her false claim, right? Now I've mentioned her by name, but absolutely do not go under any circumstance to harass this person in any way. She's not interesting enough for starters. Don't even bother, right? There's nothing there of any value that you're going to find. So, just a boring person, but there we have it. All right. That's everything for today, I think. So if you like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, share this video anywhere you think people find it interesting or anywhere you think it might bug them. And if you want to support me, aside from like super chats and super thanks and whatever, I think really, and I've got a Patreon too, but I don't post anything in it. But I think the real way to like support me would be to pick up some of my products. Like for example, Dark Albion Cults of Chaos, which has a whole section about mutations, horrible mutations that can happen to you when you engage in things like idolatry and demonology and things like that, which I guess might explain why some people on the left are so worried about getting mutations against their will. Lion and Dragon, the Gonzo Fantasy Companion, which has all kinds of weird stuff of like things that your character can be transformed into or that you can make as new characters and all sorts of other mechanics. So check out these or any of my other games. Check out my RPG Pundit Presents series. If you don't have a lot of cash, I've got 108 episodes of RPG Pundit Presents. I think it's 108 right now, or 109. I don't know. That are like between 99 cents and like $9.99 or whatever, $4.99 really for most of them. And it's something that you're giving me a tip and you're getting something for yourself, So be sure to check all that out. And thank you again for everything. And currently smoking this wonderful Neerup walnut. Neerup acorn. What am I saying? And Argento roots.